Alright, so my name's Kelly. I'm a transgendered man. I'm 23 years old and I'm by occupation a student. I study law and anthropology. My other jobs are tutoring and writing short stories and novels. Well, I think really who is the same as everyone else? I don't really think of myself as being abnormal. This is just the way that I am. In terms of when did I discover that I was male, well, I suppose I've always really known in some small way. I was sort of typecast as a tomboy growing up. I never really knew how to dress as a girl or act as a girl. I wasn't really good at behaving in that way. So I suppose I really always had that impression of myself as a person, and it was more a matter of finding the words to articulate it, and I probably managed to do that in my early 20s. Well, I suppose I haven't really known any other way of being, so it made me feel like me. Of course, there were times where it was a little bit difficult, being the tomboy child, being somebody who didn't fit a stereotype. I was thankfully lucky enough to have parents who didn't see that as being much of a problem and let me do whatever I felt like doing. It's only really been a problem as an adult being different, and that's probably because other people make such a big deal about it rather than I do. Alright, so I suppose I decided to do something about it once I had fallen into the queer community and learned a bit about what I could call myself and what was to be done about it. In my early 20s, I was in a better position financially to make the changes that are necessary, and I suppose a little bit to tell people. There are still a lot of people that I haven't told. Unfortunately, neither of my parents survived long enough for this to be an issue with them. I think perhaps the biggest factor in determining my coming out was having a really supportive partner. In previous relationships, I hadn't really felt comfortable to articulate this in words such as transgender or being a trans man, because I had partners who wouldn't have accepted it. So it's really been a matter of firstly having the resources to do something about it, secondly being informed enough and having enough contact with people who've been through this journey before me to feel comfortable with it, and thirdly having a partner who is really supportive and some friends at least whom I could tell. Well, I think it's inevitable with a lot of us, and myself included, that you do lose some people. There are people who object to what I'm doing, who think of it as being firstly a choice and secondly the wrong choice. There are also people who I think would like to be supportive, but I can't have as much contact with them because it's difficult for them to understand, and I think a lot of people go about it the wrong way. I get people saying, you know, I'm a woman who's become a man, and that's not really the way that it is, so I've lost some intimacy with friends. The other thing that I've lost a lot of is my privacy. This is something that people, I think because they don't understand, they need to ask questions, and it's of course me and my lifestyle that is the way they gauge answers to those questions. So I've been in the spotlight a lot, and privacy, yeah, is probably the biggest thing that I've lost. Alright, well, firstly, I think it goes without saying that I gained a lot of self-confidence. I prefer the body that I'm in, the things that I can do, the way that other people respond to me when I've never met them before. So I'm really enjoying that side of things. I've also gained, I think, the opportunity to make a bit of a difference to the world. And perhaps that sounds like a really idealistic thing to say, but visibility does have some pros as well as cons. And although I have lost a lot of privacy, I've gained the ability to make this an issue that my friends are aware of when they may not have been aware of it before. So that's something that I'm really grateful for. Alright, so I suppose I identify the same way that I always have, It's just that I have now got the words to express to other people a little bit of what I am. I would identify as a male person. I'm a man. I think I could use the word trans man and transgendered person, but first and foremost, I'm just an ordinary man. Alright, well, I'm attracted to my partner who is male. I've been attracted to him both before and after coming out. And I don't really feel like my sexuality has changed at all. I've always been attracted to men. So, I mean, I don't even think that's really a part of it for me. So, I think this is a big question, and I would have to say yes. I have experienced all of those things in turn. This is something that's probably been one of the most surprising aspects of my journey. I thought that people would consider me to be a bit weird. I thought it would be awkward, but I never thought that I would encounter people who objected so much that there would be fights. There have been. There was about 6 months where I didn't look clearly male or female, and it was very dangerous for me to be outside. Places like public toilets and bus interchanges, I could expect every other day to find a fight, and that was something that I either had to put up with or run away from, and so that was incredibly unpleasant and not something that I expected. In terms of discrimination, I have experienced a bit of that as well. Ideally, I'd like to work in the legal industry, and a lot of people in the legal industry are fabulous about this. They understand what it's like. They're willing to treat me the way that I'd like to be treated, and they're very respectful. But there are also a lot of companies that are quite conservative, and I think view me as a liability. So as somebody who doesn't have clearly 100 points of ID that are male or female, that's been a real hurdle to come across, and I'm grateful for the members of the legal community who are so welcoming, but it's not everybody. Finally, have I experienced transphobia? I'm a little bit involved in politics and student politics, and so I come across people's opinions, and I think a lot of people are latently transphobic and homophobic. They don't think that they're doing something that's hateful, when really what they're advocating is an oppression of people like me. So perhaps the biggest thing I can think of at the moment is the proposed legislation wherein trans people can alter their birth certificates without having all of the extensive surgery that you have to be healthy and wealthy enough to qualify for. And a lot of people are opposed to that when it's not something that's going to cost anybody any money, and it's really a matter of human dignity. So you do run into people who have those opinions, and it's not everybody, but they certainly do exist. Well, I think better awareness is probably one of the biggest things. A lot of people, when I talk about being transgendered, they picture something like Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I think that's a really, really outdated notion. People associate being trans with sexual connotations. They think perhaps it's a fetish thing, perhaps it's the same as being a transvestite, and there's really so much confusion, even amongst people who are well-meaning. So I'd like to see it being a part of mainstream education. I'd like to see awareness campaigns that aren't just preaching to the choir, so things that are targeting new audiences. And I think perhaps when the instances of discrimination are really entrenched, the only way to get around it is really to pass as one gender or the other. And so I'd really like to see this proposed legislation pass. I'd like to see trans people able to get ID that makes them less visible as trans, so that becoming visible and becoming a matter of public opinion is really more of a choice for us. Okay, well, I think the most amazing thing I've learnt is just how many of us there are. I've met some fantastic trans people through Agenda and other organisations. I was initially quite afraid to come out because I thought it was probably an incredibly rare thing, but I've come to realise that there are a significant number of us and we're just hidden. So that gives me hope. It makes me think that there are a lot more people who understand me than I thought there were previously. And it also makes me think that trans people are incredibly normal, and it's very easy to overlook us in some respects. And so I like the idea that I can just be an ordinary person like everybody else. I think really get in touch with other trans people. It's something that I had difficulty doing and hesitated about doing at first, but there are groups out there, and if you look, you will find them. Agenda Agenda has been a fantastic group for me. There are also a number of online forums, but definitely find other people who are like you, because I think the journey for me was not what I expected. So it would have been really valuable for me if I could have gone over and done this again, to get in touch with people earlier. I think it depends what you define as need. I would say that given that genderqueer is a notion that's out there now, people shouldn't need to in order to feel affirmed, and I know some people don't want to have surgery or are comfortable just having hormones or don't really feel like they need to change their bodies at all. But on another level, quite unfortunately, the legislation around recognition of transgender as a gender status means that people are forced to do these things. So currently in New South Wales, if you'd like to change your birth certificate, you're required to go through psychiatric analysis. There are not that many people in Australia who do the kind of psychiatric analysis that transgender people need. It's expensive, there are waiting lists. Once you've had that done, you can get approved for hormones, you can get approved for surgery, which you will also need to book 6 months to a year in advance. So it really becomes an issue of being healthy and wealthy enough to have surgery in order to have rights, and I think that that is a very twisted phenomenon. So on one level, I don't think everybody needs to have these things done, but on another, I think a lot of us are pressured into it when we may not want to do those things. I think I'd be less afraid about it, even knowing the downs as well as the ups now. I think it was not as horrific an experience as I thought it would be coming out to friends, and so really I just wouldn't have stayed hidden for as long.